this was a program designed to stop this wildly infectious virus seeding from returned travellers into the Victorian community. That has clearly happened, and that is clearly a failure.
As the most anticipated witness at an inquiry into Victoria's failed hotel quarantine program, Premier Daniel Andrews was scathing of the lack of clarity surrounding his own government's decision-making.
There is no complete picture without an inquiry. It is not only disappointing, it is unacceptable.
The hotel quarantine inquiry was launched in July after outbreaks from 2 hotels sparked Victoria's deadly second wave. To find out what went wrong, 62 witnesses have given evidence, including security guards, subcontractors, company executives, as well as the state's top politicians, senior bureaucrats and emergency services chiefs. 290,000 documents have also been submitted. Over 25 days of hearings, 2 of the most critical questions asked by the inquiry are who decided to use private security and who was in charge of the program. More than 30 security guards ended up contracting COVID-19 in hotel quarantine before the virus was spread. But not a single person who's given evidence seems to know who made the call to use private security over police or defence troops.
As I understand it, you're not able to say who made that decision?
No, I'm not. No, look, it was really just provided as a factual piece of information.
Look, I don't recall specifically how I became aware of that.
I do not know who made that decision.
Do you know who it was?
No, I don't. That's the nature of the decision I made. That's why I set up this board of inquiry, or recommended to the Governor to set up this board of inquiry to get exactly that answer and quite a few others, Ms. Elliott.
Because we really should know, shouldn't we?
Yes, it's one of a number of very important questions, yes.
We know the decision was made sometime on the afternoon of March 27th, the day hotel quarantine was announced. The inquiry heard National Cabinet finished around 1 p.m. At 1:16, former Police Commissioner Graham Ashton texted Victoria's top public servant Chris Eccles to ask what role police would play. Graham Ashton told the inquiry he can't remember if Chris Eccles or some other person then phoned him. But 6 minutes later, he texted his Australian Federal Police counterpart with this information.
Mate, my advice is that ADF will do passenger transfer and private security will be used. That's the deal set up by our DPC.
We don't know what happened in those missing 6 minutes because Graham Ashton told the inquiry neither he nor Victoria Police have been able to access his incoming call records.
There was a 6-minute period in which I received information that, which is along the lines that I have outlined in that text. So I don't know for sure where I got that information from.
Chris Eccles denies being the source of information.
Are you aware of any involvement by the DPC as at about 1:30 in setting up what was going to be the details of the enforcement arrangements in Victoria?
At 3 p.m. that afternoon, the Premier confirms private security will be used.
Police, private security, all of our health team will be able to monitor compliance in a much easier way in a static location, one hotel or a series of hotels.
An audio recording played at the inquiry from a critical planning meeting that same afternoon reveals Victoria Police expressed a clear opinion on the use of private security.
So is private security, Victoria Police, I understand that the preference of Victoria Police or the Chief Commissioner is that private security be the first line of security and police to respond as required. Is that your understanding, Mick?
Yes, it's Mick Granger here. Absolutely, that's our preference.
Today, in final submissions, the inquiry heard there was no one decision maker and the use of private security was a creeping assumption that became a reality.
that would be even more concerning to me, because that's not a decision at all. That's just a series of assumptions.
Contracting out is an entrenched practice of contemporary government, and to some extent I think what we've learned here is that it operated as a starting assumption, a first port of call, if you will, rather than something that was put to critical reflection as to what might be at stake in the choice between public and private alternatives.
Professor Kristen Rundle has been following the inquiry closely. She says the strong focus on government contracting is unprecedented.
What is remarkable about this event and this inquiry is that the contracting out element of the picture has been front and centre from the beginning through to the end. And one might say that what we're seeing is a kind of democratic moment, at least in the level of interest and concern for this aspect of the functions of government, that is it's uncommon that there's ever such an opportunity around discussions of government contracting. These are rarely, if ever, the subject of democratic deliberation.
The most contentious point in this whole debacle is whether military help was offered to Victoria. Last month, the Premier told a parliamentary inquiry that ADF support wasn't made available.
Fundamentally incorrect to assert that there was hundreds of ADF staff on offer.
But today in final submissions, the inquiry heard Victorian authorities knew defence support was available and that the Premier should have been told about this offer in April, revealed in emails between his Chief Public Servant Chris Eccles and the Prime Minister's office.
I am sure the Commonwealth would be willing to assist Victoria in a similar way if you wanted to reconsider your operating model.
Have you seen these emails before?
I have seen them only in preparing for my evidence today.
Would you have ordinarily expected that the availability of a resource of this kind from the ADF would have been drawn to your attention?
Yes. I certainly would have wanted to know, because it would have presented us with options that we otherwise didn't have.
Figuring out who was in charge of hotel quarantine has been another key aspect of the inquiry. The evidence shows it was a multi-agency operation, which included the Department of Jobs, but the Department of Health was the agency in control.
To me, it was quite clear that from the 28th of March, there was, under the emergency management structure, the Department of Health and Human Services were the control agency.
2 days before her resignation, the now former Health Minister Jenny Mikakos told the inquiry accountability was shared with the Department of Jobs, which is why, she claimed, she didn't know private security was even being used until after the Ridges outbreak.
I would have had no reason to turn my mind to issues around security guards.
Through that period of almost 2 months, since the establishment of the hotel quarantine program, the fact that private security guards had been engaged as the first line of compliance, if you like, did not come to your attention in any form.
That is correct, because as you know, Mr. Earle, it was in fact DJPR that was the department that had all the contracts with the security contractors.
But the inquiry heard senior health officials raised serious concerns about the program as early as April. Jenny Mikakos says she was never told.
I'm absolutely certain that those issues were not raised with me. I do not recall anyone having a conversation with me about these matters, and I'm actually very disappointed that they were not raised with me.
Department Secretary Kim Peake conceded at the inquiry she didn't brief the Health Minister on the issues.
Did you tell the Health Minister that those 3 most senior members of the Public Health Command were raising those issues in those terms?
No, Mr. Earle, as I've just outlined, I was satisfied that the issues that had been raised had been addressed.
Prior to the Health Minister's resignation, there was a long list of other key decisions she told the inquiry she had no idea about.
You were not briefed or consulted in the operational structure of the hotel quarantine program.
That is correct.
You were not briefed in relation to the governance or lines of accountability in respect of the hotel quarantine program.
That is correct.
You were not advised of the engagement of private security in the hotel quarantine program and did not become aware of their involvement until after the Rydges outbreak?
That's correct.
On Friday, the Premier issued a stinging response.
Does it concern you, Premier, that the Secretary of the Department and the Minister who you've given evidence you saw as having accountability seem to have not seen themselves as having accountability in the same way?
Yes.
There shouldn't be any degree of confusion about this, should there?
There should be none.
The next day, Jenny Mikakos resigned.
I believe that was the appropriate course of action for her to take.
During closing submissions today, counsel assisting didn't hold back.
The failure by the hotel quarantine program to contain this virus is, as at today's date, responsible for the deaths of 768 people and the infection of some 18,418 others.
The inquiry heard Victoria's most senior public servants failed to brief the Premier and ministers, and that insufficient regard was given to the safety of people working in hotel quarantine, including security guards.
It was not appropriate for private security to be the front line in enforcement at the hotels.
Counsel assisting said there was a failure to properly engage public health experts and that Chief Health Officer Brett Sutton should have been in charge of Victoria's COVID-19 response.
Mistakes have been made in this program. I want to make it very clear to each and every member of the Victorian community that I am sorry for what has occurred here, and I want to issue an unreserved apology to all Victorians.
Hi, I'm Lee Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 730's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.